Hi everyone, this is Procyon and I'll be talking about one of the very important chapters from my book, The Search for Value in Supply Chains, and this chapter is on logistics. As you know that logistics is very close to my heart, and well, it was Michael Porter who brought logistics in the value map when he created the whole two very broad elements of inbound logistics and outbound logistics into the value equation in his value chain as a concept in the early 80s. And while on the inbound you have economies of scale and concepts like logistics multipliers, because you've got to deal with several inputs which go into the making of an output, and there are multipliers involved. For a ton of output, you could be moving something like 25 tons of inputs, as is the case for aluminum. And so these are the examples on the inbound, whereas on the outbound you have just the reverse of economies of scale, which is the economies of density to be looked at. So there is a network to be looked at. Density of the network is very important, and of course the whole concept of the network optimization which comes into play. So the outbound versus inbound, and you cannot ignore the in-plant logistics, which is again a very, very important element to look at. So how does all of these play, and what are the optimizers involved in it? It's a fascinating subject, starting from the transportation problem and its optimizers to the network optimization as well. But again, I'll go back to Michael Porter with his clusters and competition, the paper that he wrote in the 1990s, which brought about a very important thing about logistics, which is about the economies of space and how are you utilizing and sharing that space, and that could be among competitors as well. I mean, anybody in the network would be coming in to share the space, and that creates enormous economies in transportation. In fact, today, when you look at it, in the post-pandemic situation, you will probably see that the economies of space utilization is one very big factor which is changing the dynamics of the freight across the world, and especially when you look at the shipping lines, they have been able to really do this far better using, of course, technology, using blockchains, and several participants in the network is able to utilize that space far more effectively. But again, there are other issues also involved in it. For example, the very concept of how much to keep in spot and how much to keep in contracts. And there again, the shipping lines have gained advantage because much more was left open in spot contracts. And that's one of the reasons why freight has been so high in the last several months. This and many other subjects come in my chapter on logistics, and I'm sure that you will probably like it very well, and it's something which is all very important for all of us in the business, which is the business of logistics. Thank you all.